Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel, All That Is. I'm here with Katrice for our weekly Galactically Speaking with Katrice and Raquel. So, welcome, Katrice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah. No more cast, no more sling.
That's awesome.
I'd like to say it's absolutely perfect, but it's better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that must be a huge relief for you to have that freedom. Hey, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like simple things, all you ladies that have long hair. I love having my hair up in a scrunchie. Well, for 2 months, I could not put my hair in a scrunchie. It just about
Yeah.
drove me nuts. And the other day, I put my hair in a scrunchie. It was hurting like crazy by the time I finished, but it was like, oh, yeah.
Yay, small victory,
Hey,
hey?
I'm not kidding. You got to be happy for the small victories, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. No, good,
Oh,
good.
I'm so glad. Well, I'm sorry I couldn't make it last week. I think I was telling you I had computer issues, so I'm glad to be back again today,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're here now.
We're here
But
now.
I just wanted to sort of touch base with the previous show we had where we talked about the elementals and that wonderful show that we had. So, did you have any residual thoughts or comments about that show?
You know what? It's not like there's anything that really sticks to me. It's just really nice just sharing on so many different levels, right? Especially you mentioned earlier, maybe we should do some woo-woo. And so many people, right? They like there's people in my world that I wouldn't even tell them about this because they go, what? Obviously, they're not real close, but you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's so fun to be able to just talk about everything and anything, right? For all of us to think that we're just here in 3D. And so that's
yeah,
why it's so much fun to talk about all these other dimensions and
yeah.
levels.
Yeah. Well, it's the dogma, right? It's the dogma that society attaches to all of this, right? And it's
Oh,
like when you talk about this, you instantly get put into that category of, having a tinfoil hat or, being considered as a conspiracy theorist, which, to me, it's ridiculous. It's arrogant for us to think that we're the only ones in this galaxy, first of
oh,
all,
for
right?
sure. For
And
sure.
to think that we are the only plane of existence with living beings on it, right? And lo and behold, my own life has been a testimony to this extraterrestrial world, if you will. There are different names. You can call them interdimensional beings, you can
What?
call them extraterrestrials, you can call them angels, you can call them light beings, whatever, right? There are so many names to these beings, right?
And if we really open ourselves to the possibility of more, it's just amazing the stuff the universe starts putting to us. I remember running into a lady one day on the street who was very, very ungrounded. It was like she was hanging by a tether. You've met people like that, right? And she calmed with me and started to share. And I went over to her house, which was, we're talking tinfoil stuff, but the story she had about being teleported out of her place and taken to this starship, in my world that was never anything I would have considered, but I felt the truth in that, and
Mhm.
it was just amazing understanding my own reaction to this. And it was like there was this excitement, not a whoa, just that excitement and going, well, no wonder I've always felt different than everybody because I can relate to so many different things
Yeah.
without even being aware of how our thoughts, our mind, our consciousness expands to bring this other multi-dimensional. That's all there is to it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and this is the thing, right? When we go back to how we were brought up and the things that we're exposed to, it's like we're put in this box, right? And we're forced to think in such a way that these thoughts or these energies or ideas are not even considered by us, right? When
Yeah.
we think about those things, we are like, no, we're shut down immediately, whether it's
Yeah.
by, mainstream media or even society or even our parents for that matter. They
Oh
say,
my
oh my
God.
God, that's all rubbish. If you go back to being a child, it's like, and I know very true stories that have happened in my life of kids seeing angels or experiencing something from other dimensions, and their parents or grandparents would immediately shut them down. It's like,
Or they say, oh,
no,
you have such a good imagination.
exactly. They put it in that box, right? And they shut the kid down as quickly as they can. And so the kid is like, instead of being given encouragement, is like immediately shut down, and it's considered bad for them, right, to be able to even go into that arena of or that thought process. So if for whatever reason those angels or angelic forms still come into their reality, they think it's bad and they start to push that energy away. And so what happens? Those energies get disconnected from them, right? And
Well, like
so
schizophrenia.
energetically, they are just severed from that Christ consciousness or, connection to their higher self or whatever they are having that experience from the divine, right?
And what's happened though is a lot of them are diagnosed with schizophrenia because
Yeah.
or you hear voices or you see things. Well, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're hearing
It's
things,
so
seeing
wrong,
things,
isn't it? It's so
feeling
wrong.
things,
Yeah.
and it's not crazy, but it's just, being able to bring those people that are untethered to this reality. That's what the
Yeah.
problem is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All of that might seem really woo woo. And a lot of people, when you talk about conspiracy theorists and stuff like that, a lot of them, because they're so, they don't want to be here, they feel like somehow they're stuck here. But you have to be in this reality to be able to bring in that stuff. And if you're not anchored, which is
Mm-hmm.
why one of the reasons I do what I do, you do what you do, it's making people aware of their own multi-dimensionality
Yeah.
and their where they're originating from. Good old star beings,
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like having one foot on the ground and sort of experiencing the other realms with the other foot, right? To me, it's like walking between two worlds, right?
Yes, yes.
And having that ability or that cognition, if you will, of accepting both realities and accepting that wider experience of not
Mhm.
only this world, but the world that you're experiencing otherwise. And I think the key is because you're able to do that, and because you're not able to provide proof of that world,
Yeah.
it's that, society just considers it, an illusion, right? It's that, it's that need to be able to prove something, right? Can you prove it to
Mhm.
me? And you can't, because it's not a physical reality. It's a different dimensional reality based on frequency and vibration. And so how do you prove that to the physical world, right? Because the physical world we are living in is, in a way, is derived from that frequency and that vibration, but at a very lower pace, if you will, right?
Yes, yes.
So unless you have that scientific mind, if you will, to understand matter and how matter comes about, the rest of it gets thrown out as trash, right? And so it's
Oh,
really
completely.
frustrating when, when everything gets put into this box of like, no, 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 don't believe in that. It's all BS. And so that's my frustration, because for me it's like, and frustration coming, in myself as well, because I feel like I wasted a lot of years not believing in this other dimension, if you will, right? Because when you go back to my early years, and these, like say a classic example would be the Star Trek movies, right?
Oh
Whenever they were
yeah.
introduced to me, I would always say bullshit. I don't believe in that. I don't, believe in any of this stuff. And my ex-partner or whoever would bring that into, for us to watch, I would say, no, sorry, I'd prefer to go and read a book or something. So there was that block in my own mind not to accept that as my own reality. And so I feel bad for my own self, my younger self, for not having to do that, right? To be
But
able
you
to
know
accept that.
what?
I wasn't
When
ready.
you weren't ready and you
Yeah.
had to learn a lot of other things, right? Like a lot of people go, oh my God, well, like my age. And I think I don't ever, I sometimes think, God, if I could have had this mindset, this understanding at 25, whoa, what would have happened, right? What would have happened? But it doesn't matter because this
Yeah.
is what has happened. This is
Yeah.
where I am now. And
Yeah.
apparently it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. So, hallelujah. You know what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
fight it any longer. What I was telling you earlier that I went to see a physiotherapist yesterday for the injury, and we were talking about what I do, right? And she goes, how do you actually get people to calm themselves enough to understand that they're capable of more? And
Hmm.
it was really interesting because it's not a really hard thing to do if I
Yeah.
can get people to just be quiet for a moment, listen, open, and breathe. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Yeah.
Because so many people look at healing, if you want to call it that, as being some long, convoluted process and you got to rant and rave. And I'm going, not really. That doesn't work for me. I'd much rather just come into a calm place and go from there.
Yeah.
That was always my issue. Never feeling comfortable in me, which really
Hmm.
sucks because this is where I am. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that when she said to me, how do you get people to actually open to that? And like there's a time in our lives when we're ready to open. Before we had all these um, pre-programmed ideas about what reality is, right?
Yeah.
And face
Yeah.
it, we learn from our parents and all of that.
Hmm.
But these kids, I want to say the last 20, 30 years, there's so many young people that have come onto the planet that have come in with a much higher awareness.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
they're not, there's not any anger. They come in on this really loving high vibe, right? And you see
They're all
it
star seeds.
everywhere. Huh?
They're all star seeds.
They are.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just so cool talking to them.
Hmm.
That's probably another
Well,
reason why.
their DNA is at a much more awakened
Yeah, it's refined.
vibration, right? Like, yeah, they're
Clear.
more awakened. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 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 It's that clear energy. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's that step that you have to take, right? It's like a big divide, if you will, right? From that societal sort of framework into this realization, if you will, right? And that was the most difficult step for me to take into this realm, if you will, right? In understanding all of that through my 3D mind, if you will, right? And letting all of that go. And so it was a huge learning curve for me. And I guess it's happening to many as well, right? Within this realm. Um,
Totally.
and so that I think is the hardest lesson to learn, to take that wide leap of faith, if you will, to embrace our multi-dimensionality, if you will, right?
I remember now that we're just sitting here talking, the very first time when well, how can you prove something? And it's nothing to do with proving it in your mind. It's where it resonates within you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'd been to this what do you call it? Spiritualist church, and they were giving a talk on Lemuria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And hello, I'm a suburban housewife. What the hell? I don't know what Lemuria is.
Yeah.
Well, go into this meditation. Oh my God. And I felt this connection with this vibration, with that healing energy, with crystals, which I'd never, none of that stuff. And I remember coming out of the meditation and frantically looking, and we were in a church, right? Looking under the pew in front of me for a ring that I, in this lifetime, do not own, but my
Oh,
finger was humming. And I'm looking for it because I was looking at this past life and
right.
I had that ring on.
Wow.
I know. And my friend goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I went, "Well, I'm looking for my ring." And she goes, "Well, what ring?" And then it
Right.
wasn't long after that I found that ring. And boom, yeah, this
Wow.
ring, it was like, whoa, that's different. But as soon as I put that ring on, boom, basically Katrice woke up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then it was like, uh-oh, things are going to change big time now.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So you do have that connection to Lemuria,
Oh, big time. And then, of course, I moved to, I mean, Vancouver, the Pacific coast. That's where
that
Lemuria
energy.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
Kauai, there's this
yeah.
major connection with Kauai, BC, Mount Shasta. There's like
Hmm.
that
That
vortex. And
whole
it's,
Pacific Ocean area. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and the
Awesome.
whole thing is too, like with Lemuria, here now we're getting on another tangent, but this is interesting.
That's okay.
Lemuria was all to do with more to do with the divine feminine, right?
Hmm.
Healing, crystals, all of that sort of stuff, right? Intuition. Whereas Atlantis was more male and
Yeah,
machines and all that stuff. So
yeah.
for me to feel that connection was really good on so many different levels, right? One, not the least of which was fully aligning with myself as a female in this
Hmm.
time and space, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that being a good thing, not a bad thing, you know?
yeah.
So it's
Well,
like,
you hinted at your priestess life in the previous
yeah,
life, I guess. So that would be it, right? The Lemurian
totally,
lifetime.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. And then the first time
Awesome.
I went for someone for an energy healing, because I figured something was telling me, you got to go to this person. She's going to show you what you're supposed to be doing. I walk into her place, and right there in front of me on the wall is the Lemurian temple that I'd seen
Oh,
in
wow.
my past. Yeah, it was.
Well, talk about synchronicities,
It
hey?
is. We were
Yeah,
talking about that earlier. It's like when you're open
yeah,
to more,
yeah.
when you're open to
Here, let me share
possibilities.
something. Are you able to see that?
Angel numbers. Yeah, yeah.
So this to me is a great synchronicity. No, continue with what you were saying. I'll just leave this on there and we can come back to it.
Okay.
But yeah, these are like synchronicities that usually show up in our everyday lives, right? And
All
so,
the time.
yeah.
All the time. And I love that the 444 too. That's my license plate number, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all about, yeah,
That's a good
protection.
license plate number to have, a protection.
No
Okay, so just for the
kidding.
audience, I'm going to read this out. So 000 is completion. One chapter ends and another begins. 111 is the intention and trust your intuition. 222 is alignment. You will find balance. 333 is support. Your angels and the divine energy will assist you. 444 is protection. A facelift,
Face life,
a
face
face
left.
life, facelift, face life with strength. You are on the right path. 555 is change. Energy moves, great things are on the horizon. 666 is reflection. Take some time to sit and act and assess what is happening. 777 is luck. Embrace the goodness coming your way.
Mm.
888 is abundance. Life is balanced and you are blessed. 999 is release. It is time for you to let go of what no longer serves you. And 1111 is manifestation. High vibrational energy surrounds. I
Mm.
get 1111 quite a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I at 222, I get that all the time too.
Yeah, yeah. For me,
It's
it's
interesting
two.
though.
Yeah, two. Yeah, you're
666.
right. 222 is right as well.
Yeah. But 666, everybody talks about as the number of the devil.
Yeah, see, that's an inversion. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, 888, I love that one. That to me is just, well, it's
Abundance.
infinity is as above, so below,
Yeah.
abundance, never ending, right?
Yeah. I usually
Totally.
try to start my shows at that time. It's either 11:11 or 2:22. I try to
Mm-hmm.
keep it at that timeline, which to me works really well. So yeah, it's really amazing when you see these confirmations, like, and especially when I'm, struggling with something, and then I just, out of the blue, and it's so unintentional, right? You sort of just catch these numbers on wherever you are in the clock, or, in the kitchen stove or
Wherever.
somewhere, and
Or
it's like,
somebody's
wow,
license plates, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's like, as soon as that happens, it's like you sort of stop and it's like, wait a minute, what was I doing?
Well, for me, I want to say it focuses our awareness, right?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
see it, and there's a whole piece of me that always goes, "Did it?" No matter what the
yeah,
number is, but three
yeah,
of them, four of them, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's like
love it.
you're just getting a wink from the cosmos, right? And saying,
Yeah,
hold on,
yeah,
pause, take a
no,
breath, and
yeah,
just reevaluate, contemplate. That's how I see it. It's like, just take a breath, have a moment to yourself, connect with God, or, the Almighty or the Creator or whatever, and just acknowledge that moment, right?
totally.
So I think that's really beautiful. And then it sort of, I just want to go one step further and talk about, we were talking about alignment and that sort of synchronicity that happens, right? But
Hmm.
there's also something called, like we call it the spider senses, or the gut
Yeah,
feeling, or the gut instinct, right?
yeah.
Or the seventh sense, right? So what are your feelings about that? I think that's totally absolutely true. And when that
Oh,
happens,
the thing for me that is like boom is when I'm in my car and I'm driving, right? It's like I'm aware of everything all around me. And a friend of mine one day goes, "Oh, no, no, no. I just look straight ahead." I went, "Well, that's kind of silly. You've got moving things going on everywhere."
yeah.
Like, even so, anyway, so I know, I feel when some Nimrod is going to move from a lane to here without whether he puts a signal on or not, right?
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
hallelujah, because so many people are just so laser focused. They're not
yeah.
paying attention to anything else, right?
And they will be the one that honks at you, right? When you
Totally.
are actually doing the right thing. Yeah, I totally get it.
Oh God. That drives me crazy. Or it's oh, or I'm also able though, if I'm going somewhere and there's somebody in front of me, those people that they don't really know where they are, but instead of trying to keep up with traffic, they're going to slow everything down, right? And
Yeah.
you can feel them coming, they're coming. And like even yesterday, I'm going, "Oh, can you please go into the left lane and head that way?" And so, okay. And the guy immediately moves over and goes the other way. It's like,
Thank you.
or like finding parking spots. It's the
Yeah,
same thing, right?
yeah,
There's,
yeah,
the parking lots are just jammed and there's people everywhere. And you sort of sit there and going, okay, I think I'll go down this one. Bing.
yeah, yeah. It's the
It's
intention, isn't it?
it
Yeah.
is. And it's the belief that you are moving in your own divine flow, right? If you're fighting everything, everything fights back, right? Whereas if you can just go, okay, I'm ready to just, yeah.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? And you feel it in your body, right? For me, it's like when something is like absolutely true, I get that sensation in my body. It's like the
Oh,
hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you get like goosebumps, right? So
well,
that's what happens to me too. Yeah.
for me, it's like there's this, how can I describe it? It's like, okay, if somebody asked me to do something and I've never done it before, if I pay attention to my head, it would have all these excuses. But if it's something I'm supposed to do, it's like there's nothing in my head. It's just like zoom. It's like this how can I describe it? Like a bolt of light, if you want to say. It's just,
Hmm.
boop, boop. Nope, this is divine. Anchor it in, you go. And, and so you trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah. It's a hard one,
Just
isn't it? Trust. Yeah.
having faith that, yeah, I, I've been in a pretty trusting place, even with this stupid thing happening from the beginning of the year. It was quite interesting. I knew this was going to be a
Bumpy ride.
stellar year. This is a pivotal
Yeah.
year. I just
Yeah.
know it. And never in a million years did I think it would happen at this time. A lot of people hit a certain age. Well, that's it. Let's just cruise into the sunset.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I always knew that wasn't going to be me.
Yeah. No, I love your drive. I love your energy.
Well, it's just you gotta, it's not like and I don't do as much as I used to do, but I do enough for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people can sit and have nothing to do all week.
Hmm.
No, I need to have something to keep me motivated,
Yeah.
to have something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything big, you know?
No, absolutely. Well, I was in the store the other day getting a bulb for my lamp, and the lady before me at the checkout counter, she was chatting away with the lady, and they were having a good old conversation. And so after she left, the lady behind the counter, she said, "Can you guess how old that lady was?" And I was I had to double take because I didn't quite pay much attention to her, but she would have been, to me, she would have been, in her perhaps 60s, late 60s, early 70s. She said she's 85. And she was perfectly healthy, had her handbag, and was walking, talking like a perfectly healthy human being. And so she was like, I'm totally amazed at her. And she said during my conversations, she said that she comes from a very good lineage where they live long. And I was like, that's amazing, like, and I said, it doesn't matter. It's how it's your outlook on life, I suppose, and
Yes,
how you deal with, what's given to you, right? It doesn't matter.
totally.
Age doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And especially as females, I mean,
Yeah.
guys, I'm noticing a lot now too, though. They worry about getting older and it's all about, um, yeah, they just worry about all the things that could happen as you age, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because God knows, I know lots of people 20 years younger than me that are nowhere near the shape I'm in, the mental way I am, um, having a joyful presence out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
genuinely. I'm always looking for joyful stuff, right? And when
Yeah.
what you look for is what you get, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
It's
what's your opinion of, I know we talked about this very briefly because that's, sort of my exposure to the extraterrestrial, if you
mm,
will. So shall we dip into that a little bit
yeah,
and what your
totally,
opinion is of.
totally.
Well, let's talk about ghosts and hauntings first before we go into the full-blown ET experience. I know you and I sort of had our brush with the ghosts in the past, if you will, right? And
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
totally.
we talked about this on the show, but this was when I was working at the bank, and we had this, and I'm just going to briefly tell the audience if they haven't
What
heard the
happened?
story
Yeah.
before, right? And so we had this paranormal experience, if you will, where people were getting sick, and some were talking about seeing this apparition, if you will, in the washroom, or doors being banged after them, the elevator opening and nobody in there, or closing of its own volition, and it was all freaky stories that we were hearing, right? And so my manager and I went into her office and I said, look, let's just get this over and done with once and for all. And she was a really cool person. Like, she and I used to talk about all of this stuff. And, she was probably like you and I talk about any and everything, right?
Hmm.
And so I said, look, I know somebody that could potentially help us. And are you willing to be open-minded and go down that road? And she's like, yeah, 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 let's do it. And she was like this person that was like, her guide was Archangel Michael, I believe. And so she had this higher guidance as well. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And then I got in touch with you and we fixed a date on the weekend. I think it was a Saturday morning. We
Yeah,
decided to go
yeah,
to the office when nobody was around. And so we went in there and you came with your pendulums and I think you had some crystals with you. And me and my boss, we did this tour of the floor, if you will. Now, mind you, there were 60 people working on that floor. So it was a really big office, right?
yeah,
And
it
so we
was,
had to
yeah.
walk around the entire office and you sort of narrowed down the place that where this energy was, right?
Hmm.
And so do you want to tell the story from here?
Well, yeah, it was I think the thing that I really remember about it too was walking into one of your bosses or one of the people's office and saying, there's what's going on with this person, and you said, oh, he's off at a convention or he's at a seminar somewhere, and I went, well, I'm feeling like he's really sick, is he okay? Anyway, one thing leads to another, and whoever that was ended up having a heart attack when he was away, and that's after the fact, but I remember that going, wow, I really have tuned into everybody in this office, right? And so I was just going into all these places, but when I get to this one corner, it was very, very dense. And so I thought, okay, now it's not like this is what I bill myself as, Ghostbuster, right?
Yeah.
But you asked and the universe went, yeah, sure, give her, right? So I
Yeah.
remember sitting there, and it turned out that this being had not officially left the earth plane after he died. And he'd been somebody that was working on
Yeah.
building this building.
Yeah.
So this poor dude had been stuck in this building for God only knows how long.
Yeah.
And it was something about he felt guilty because he didn't go home to his son that night, who was 6 or 7, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He
Anyway,
had a child. Yeah.
yeah, he had a child and he just blah, blah. Well, now it turned out the child had passed away and both him and his dad were there. And so we all sat there with some candles and just tuned in and told them it was okay and they could leave.
Yeah.
And by the next day, when everybody came into the office, everybody felt the shift. And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, that was so simple. What did we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
do anything except tune in to
Yeah.
another realm
Yeah.
because we're all souls. We
Yeah.
might be in physical form, but
Yeah.
some of us are still stuck around up there, not figuring out where they need to be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
so,
absolutely. I completely confirm that story. It was amazing. And
oh,
all we did was we just sat in a circle and we meditated in that particular place where you felt the
yeah,
dense energy and we sort of showed the way, if you will, for this
yeah,
being to leave. And it's almost like he was wanting that confirmation, if you will, that it was safe for him to leave this
yes,
space, right? Yeah.
yes, yes.
Well, I don't want to say that you were wrong, but I got the impression that his kid was still alive and that he was not wanting to leave the plane because of his kid being
Oh,
alive. I don't think his
hmm.
kid would had passed away. Anyway,
That
that's just my
whatever.
recollection
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
event. But either way, it was like, he was given that okay, if you will, to go ahead and leave. And you're right, after we did our session, there were no more incidents on the floor. And everybody was, back to normal, which was really amazing for me to experience that with you. And, it's sort of stuck in my reality and in my brain that, we were able to accomplish that. So,
And that was before you started getting into
oh, absolutely. I was
Raquel
very much in the
3.0.
3D at that point, and
Oh,
so,
big time.
yeah.
And I
So,
think
yeah,
that's when it's so exciting, right? When it's did I ever share about my mom? She had passed away years ago and somebody told me she wanted to talk to me. Of course, she was gone.
yeah,
So I went to where her ashes had been thrown, which was at Third Beach in Vancouver.
yeah.
And my oldest friend went with me that day because she was really connected to my mom and she had a pet name for my mom.
Oh yes, you have told
Remember?
me this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have told me the story, but that's amazing. No, keep
Okay.
going. Tell it, tell
Okay.
it.
So My friend, very, very, very poo-poo on this woo-woo stuff. In fact, now she can't even handle being in the same room with me because her reality is not like mine. But that day, she sits up on the seawall. I go out and sit on a log. And again, it's before I started doing me. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this is weird." But okay, hey, mom, I hear you want to talk to me. And at that moment, somebody's walking along the seawall with a great big boom box, and he'd hit play, and the music's blaring. And I heard clear as a bell, turn that god awful racket down. It was my mom. And she used to say that to me and Carol, my friend, all the time. And I sort of giggled, and the guy turned the music off. So I sort of had this thought transference thing with mom, and I sort of went, okay, whatever, finished, poof, it's been real. Go up to the seawall, start walking with my friend, and she says to me, well, how was that? And I went, that was kind of interesting. And she says, hey, did you hear that guy with the boom box? And I went, yeah. And you're talking about tinglies? I went, yeah. And she goes, I could have swear to God I heard Arthur yell, turn that god awful racket down. So she heard it. She, who doesn't believe in any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, yeah, and then I had tears because it was so real.
Yeah, so that was a good confirmation for you, right? Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
especially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, my girlfriend, of course, oh, well, whatever. I was just imagining in it. Yeah, okay. Doo, doo, doo. But it's stuff like that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
it
just,
just comes from left field, right? And it's like, what the hell just happened? Yeah,
and it's
you
so
can't help
real.
but believe it, right? Yeah, yeah,
Or when I have people say to me, especially when I'm doing readings, right? And especially if people are hearing stuff they're not really wanting to hear. And they go, are you just making up all this bullshit, or where do you get this from? And
yeah.
I'm going, maybe it just comes in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
But how can you prove? And I went, it's a reality,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
inevitably down the road, they understand what it was all about, even if they didn't in that moment.
Yeah.
So it,
It's the show me the proof kind of situation, isn't it? That's so 3D. And that's happened to me as well. But going back to connecting with the other worlds, if you
yeah,
will, this has sort of happened to me, I would say, in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, very strongly, where people that have passed on have come back into my reality.
yeah,
And it's a lot to do with family members. Like as soon as, they've gone on to the other side, um, it's almost like they come to my guides and ask permission to speak to me.
yeah,
And it's like they come to through with that sort of how do you say it? It's like opening that door, right? It's like, once my guide says, connects with me and says, so and so wants to speak to you. Are you okay with that? And I say yes. And then it's like you're welcoming them into your house, right? And it's like you have this conversation. And for me, it's like it's always been very, very accurate. And the way I sort of make sure it's accurate, it's like I ask them something that only that person and I would perhaps know about, right?
yes,
And
yes.
so that's, to me, that's a great confirmation, right? And then we can go on to whatever they came to talk to me about, or share with me about what their life has been all about since they moved on. And this came very strongly to me in December, that time when I met you at the bookstore. It
Mm-hmm.
was just around that time when I had lost a dear friend on the island. And I
Right.
think I mentioned it to you when we met. But she came through very strongly right after that. Like, she came and we used to talk almost every week, Catrice. Like when
Yeah.
I'm driving back from my work in Surrey, I would call her and we would chat for like however long my drive lasted. She would keep me company on my drive back
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was almost like every week I would talk to her and we would share things in our lives, and then she was suddenly gone, right? And so I missed that. And so she came and we had long conversations, about how her life has changed and what she's up to and how she's, now aligning all of her past lives and how she's healing from the trauma of passing from here and a lot of things she told me matched up with what Yeshua told me in the book that I wrote with him,
Yeah.
The Voice of an Angel, my second book. And that's sort of to do with the I guess you could call it the ascension, right? um but in this fashion, I would say it wasn't a true ascension, because to me the ascension is you coming into the realization of a light being when you're still in the physical,
Hmm.
right? But this being passed on without having to do all of those things. Like she was, still stuck in that sort of 3D non-belief sort of situation, right? Right? Like she
Totally.
did sort of believe in what I was doing. Like I even helped her with her. She had a dependence on alcohol, and so I
Oh,
sort of helped her with that, and she kicked it while she was here towards the end of her life, if you will. Um,
wow.
but she was aware of my journey, but she didn't necessarily completely embrace it. So so I wouldn't essentially call it an ascension, but still, she still passed on, if you will, and reached the right place, where she was meant to be, and connected with her soul family, um, which happens to be my soul family as well. So,
Mhm.
I guess that's why it became so easy for us to connect even in the afterlife, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, so she comes occasionally and, gives me a little nudge and says hello. And, we sort of connect and she goes off and does her thing. And so she's really, really happy with, the way things are. And she was she's from Germany, right? And so she's like this no nonsense kind of person when I
Yeah.
knew her here, right? And so she couldn't stand all the stuff that was going on with the government and all the stuff that's happening with us politically, right? And so we used to have long conversations about all of this. So so I get to pick her brain even now. It's like, what does it look like now from your perspective?
It's, that it's so cool because when we can start, when you said picking her brain, it's like there's another octave that she's operating at now, right? It's new to her from her physical reality, but who she is on the level of a soul, this is, she had to experience here before she goes back, figures out what's next, and then she gets to come back if that's what she chooses,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. No, it's really fascinating. I get to experience, these two um, faces, if you will, of reality and how all of these
Totally.
things come into our reality, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm really quite happy to be blessed to be able to experience all of these things.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same if you had stayed in the corporate world.
Oh my gosh, no,
You
when
wouldn't
I
have been
think
able
about
to.
that, it's just crazy, isn't it? So I'm going to share with you my latest newsletter.
Oh, cool.
Can you see that?
I can. Woo, look at the ETs. Oh, it is ETs.
So it says, "Are you ready for ET contact?"
Totally.
So I was guided to do this because, I'm really trying to eliminate that stigma, if you will,
Yeah.
from what the ETs in all likelihood really are, right? Because to me, I've had contact with light beings and I've had contact with dark beings, or the malevolent and the benevolent beings, right?
Hmm.
And so to me that's like it's already I'm already, if you will, a contactee, right? And so anybody can essentially contact these beings if they choose to, right? And so
Totally.
we are in this place right now where we are going through this evolution of the human being, if you will, right? And so to
Hmm.
me, I felt that there were three paths, if you will, that we could take. And so I just outlined it here. Then I went down to discover each one. So one was become a galactic ambassador of light as we evolve and transition to become light beings. And that's how I describe myself essentially. And number two, I guess I'm between one and two. and two is already identified as a being of light or a star seed to bridge the gap by assisting the many in their own transition or transformation to themselves becoming light beings or light workers, star seeds,
Mhm.
and galactic ambassadors of light. So it's like you're the bridge between these two realms, if
Totally.
you will, right?
Hmm.
And then continue as you were, asleep to what is taking place. Remain in a third dimensional reality, a falsely created reality of living in chaos and suppression.
Oh, totally.
So that's how I saw it, as just being these three sort of paths, if you will, or the
Mm.
choices that we need to make. And so I, from my own reality, these are the beings that sort of invaded the earth plane, and now they have a face. We can put a face to their reality, if you will. So the
Mm.
middle guy is like the Alpha Draconian, and so
Right.
there's a hierarchical system that they created, right? And so
Uh-huh.
you have the Zeta Reticuli, if you will, which is a constellation, which is where these beings come from. Well, not this one in particular. I couldn't quite find a good picture of a Zeta Reticuli, but then these guys are like on the second layer,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
will, and then you have the reptilians and the Greys. But these are like the powerhouses, if you will, that sort of brought in that invasion of the Earth plane. Um, I would say about 15,000 years ago.
Mm.
And so, after the invasion, it's when they created that hierarchy, right, within the Earth plane and brought about the ruling system, if you will, right? And so they were right on the top
Ah.
of the pyramid, and then you have the political system, the government system, um, the bankers and the politicians and all
Yeah,
of these others.
yeah.
But we are like the everyday people are at the bottom of that pyramid, right? And
Mm.
so the way they did it was they stepped behind the curtain, if you will. And these people within that hierarchy that they created were the ones that ruled the many or the population, right? And
Right.
the way they did it was they sort of provided them with riches, with titles, with um, all kinds of things as a way of bringing them into those positions. And so I thought this was appropriate when I chose that picture, just
Look,
to
I
bring
thought, what
about
the?
that idea of debauchery, greed, lust, and sexual depravity, right? And so they provided them
Right.
with all of these things in order to bring them into that um, leadership position, if you will, right? And so I have to say
Um,
that these beings, they had developed in such a way, it was just that their heart chakra or the solar plexus was not developed.
uh-uh.
And so that's why they were able to live from that reality, which was mostly their head, if you will. They had a really large ego,
Yeah.
and they had a blown up sort of root chakra, right? And so it was that flight of fight mode, if you will, right? And
Totally.
so they were coming from that reality and ruling, if you will, from that reality. And this is just a picture of our entire, a
Really
snapshot
picture.
of all the star systems. And so if you can see my arrow,
Yeah.
this is where the Zeta Reticuli constellation is.
Okay.
Um, and somewhere up here, oh, here it is. The Draco constellation is here. And so they're like diagonally opposite each other, many, many
Totally.
light beings away from each other. And then Orion is here, which is where the Greys come from. And so it's like they made this alliance between each other from all this, this distance
Right.
away from each other. And they aligned to go against the light beings,
Phew.
against the creator, essentially, and all of I guess, the idea of universal laws and essentially against love in all its
Right.
forms, right? And so what else do I talk about? Oh yeah, I talked about the Mayan civilization and how they brought forward the idea that there was this new Earth
Right.
coming forward, if you will, after 2012, which is essentially the ascension process coming to light or coming online, if you will. And
That's
so after this,
interesting.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, 2012, so many things happened that year.
Yeah, that
My,
was like the shifting of reality, if you will.
oh, complete shifting of
Mm-hmm.
reality. In fact, so much so, I was in a relationship, had been for a number of years. And I remember walking out with just the clothes on my back. And it wasn't like I was a spring chicken by any stretch of the imagination, but it was this reality that I was living in that no, this is definitely not for my highest growth. And that
Yeah.
same night that I walked out, my father transitioned. So it was like, boom, all of that stuff that had brought me to where I was at this point, everything, boop, I let it all go,
Yeah.
including that connection to, yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah, it was a huge year of transition. So
Totally.
anyway, long story short, the
Yeah.
creator and a few of these higher dimensional beings got together and they decided, okay, these bullies, if you will, of the universe have had enough. They've caused enough ruckus all over the place, so we're going to help bring back peace and harmony. And so they formed what is loosely known as the Galactic Federation. And
Yeah.
so many of these star nations came together and signed up as membership, and they started to gather their forces, and then they started to free all of these places that the Draco and the Alliance had ransacked. And so Earth was their final destination. And so when they came to Earth, they sort of created a quarantine, if you will, around the Earth plane so that these beings couldn't leave or come back in. And
Ah,
so it was like an energetic quarantine that was put into force on December 21st, 2012. And
mm,
so since then, they have been slowly getting rid of these beings, like all of them, whoever's in that hierarchy are being taken off planet and processed, if you will. And the
mm-hmm.
way they're being processed is that they're given two choices. So the way I see it, or the way I've been guided to see it, is that the creator issued a decree saying that you are not meant to be on this earth plane because it is meant to be a school for beings to come here and to learn and to do have
Evolve.
to have their own ascension process. But
Right.
you have come in and you have halted that process, and you have devolved the planet into earlier it was an earth the earth plane was vibrating, if you will, between a fifth and a seventh dimensional being.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Once this invasion happened, it devolved into a fourth dimensional plane of existence. So essentially, it's become like a barren land, if you will, if you look at it from that perspective, right? Where she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to help herself to transition on that original path that she was on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when this quarantine happened, it was like she was again given that opportunity to wake up and to continue on her divine path, if you will,
Totally.
right? And so
Right.
they kept trying they kept trying to bring us back into that reality, if you will. If you remember, 2012 was a shit show with
Yeah.
the pandemic, right? And so they tried their best to get us back into that reality. But by that time, I believe there was so much light already anchored in the land that it was not possible for them to shift back into that reality, right?
Mm.
And so here I talk about the quarantine, and then, there's already a revolution happening, if you will, where people are realizing the truth of what is actually going on and are saying, nope, sorry, we're not, part of that work agenda anymore. We don't align with that. And there
Uh-oh.
again, we've talked about the divine masculine and the divine feminine and how that has sort of shaken everybody, right? And to me, I consider
Mm.
that part of that work agenda as well. There's no balance in that energy of the masculine and the feminine energies, right?
Totally.
And
To-
so this was a picture of what the Earth was essentially in that fourth dimensional existence.
Yeah.
Because what they had done, Catrice, was when the invasion happened, they landed on the moon and they implanted a frequency fence which directly impacted the Earth. And so there was a vibrational energy that was coming from the moon to bring
Mhm.
the Earth down into that lower vibrational frequency of the fourth dimension or the lower fourth dimension. So
Right.
that's how they flipped the Earth from that high vibrational fifth to seventh dimensional Earth to a fourth dimensional energy. So they
Mm.
not only put these vibrational devices on the moon, but they've got it all over the Earth. And when you think about 5G towers,
Oh God, yeah.
that's like what they did now. But we also talked about this in a previous show where after World War II, they changed that whole music
Yes.
situation, right? So the radio waves were transmuting or transmitting this garbled energy, right? So it was a combination of all of these things, right?
Oh,
That
totally.
brought the frequency of the earth into this lower vibrational state. And so her own trajectory through the cosmos was, in a way, arrested. I would say arrested is a good
Yes.
word, right?
Right.
And so since the 2012 event, she has become aware of her own transition through the cosmos. Um, and I think we've talked about this as well in the past, where we talked about the photon belt,
Right.
right? And so she became aware of her own being transitioning through this photon belt, which in a way gave her that strength to come back into her own being, if you will, and
Hmm.
revive herself. And so, and if you think about it from 2012 to now, there's been so much happening just from the Earth's perspective, all the earthquakes, all the fires, all the natural disasters. Recently, there was an earthquake in Myanmar and in
Yes.
Thailand, right? And
Yes.
so she's also shaking and she's also adjusting to this new energy that's coming forth, if you will, and she's purging and she's letting out all of this dark energy that has been within her being for so many hundreds of these
Oh,
years, right?
oh yeah.
And so she's going through a cleansing as well. So I say here it's like the fleas on her back. The invaders were soon being removed as she felt the weight of their suppression to be replaced with her rejuvenating strength and rebirth.
Totally.
So that was just about what the earth is going through. And so, yeah, and so she's connecting with the star seeds and the light workers and sort of, in a way, acknowledging them because they are bringing back that light into her being and anchoring it into her being and giving her that energy, if you will, to cleanse and to purge herself from
Hmm.
all of that darkness. And so coming back to those three choices that we are meant to make, right? And so I've outlined it again. So align with the high dimensional beings, the Andromeda and the star nations who are parked just outside of our reality, who are here on behalf of the Creator to correct the wrongs done in the past, so that each being is allowed the chance to return to their true soul's purpose and their original soul's evolution as designed by the Creator. Choosing this path would entail becoming an ambassador of light, take on an initiate's role of becoming light beings and transitioning their being and their belief system to match those of these evolved interdimensional beings and their mission. In due course, this could mean interdimensional contact and accepting roles as assigned by these high dimensional beings. In essence, align yourself to become a cosmic citizen. And then option number two is to become light beings, star seeds, or healers, to take advantage of what is taking place from the perspective of a being of light, being a star seed, to become selfless warriors and healers so as to help the many transition, awaken, and heal from their traumatic states to become free of subjugation and suppression, to become a bridge between the old world and the new, giving the many the ability to find themselves and to heal as they shift their perspective from being the suppressed, to train their minds through practice and guidance to becoming light beings and star seeds themselves. These roles would entail being guardians and stewards of the land as healing takes place on many levels within and upon the earth plane. And then the final one is status quo. This final option is to remain where you are, happy to live in the simulation that has been created for you by the invaders, a false reality that is one of competition, strife, chaos, lack, greed, hatred, anger, and a plethora of lower vibrational energies.
Sorry.
This would entail further harming your soul and deviating from the Creator's pure evolutionary cycle to practice those belief systems of the invader that have been deeply imposed upon the mind and the psyche for many generations, as far back as potentially 15,000 of your Earth years. This is a circuitous route back home for the soul, fraught with hardship, trauma, and difficulty, as there is no way to prove these facts besides the experience of those who have already walked the enlightened path, much like Yeshua ben Joseph, also known as Jesus Christ, and other ascended masters. Your history, for one, has poorly illustrated the truth about even these beings who once dwelled upon the earth and tried to save the many during their incarnation, for their stories have been inverted and fabricated to be presented to you in a fashion that was suited to the invaders and their belief systems. They mocked you with these fairy tales. This choice will take you down that path of false promises and the false history that has prevailed as a belief system, along with many other belief systems that you know to be the truth.
Right
So
on.
I felt there was an urgency to bring this forward. Um,
Oh,
to me,
awesome.
that was like the three choices that we have right now. And there's nothing wrong with either one, like even if you make the choice to remain where you are.
That's your, yes, because this is a free will
Like
planet.
I said, it's a circuitous road back to your soul's, your soul's home, if you will,
Hmm.
or back to the creator, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you will perhaps have to align those energies after you've moved on from this reality, right?
Totally, totally.
So that's my mission, to change as many minds as I can,
Oh,
as gently
sweet.
as I can.
Gently, without whacking them over the head with the woo-woo bat. But it's just, I
But
guess, for those of us that have experienced things of a multi-dimensional reality, we know there's no going back, and it's just different people that never would have in a million years been able to understand that by coming to me, coming to you, asking a simple question. It can completely catapult them into a new way of being.
yeah,
They said,
absolutely.
I don't know about you, but there's no way I want option three. I've long
Yeah,
since stepped out of that one, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that's not to say we do live on the earth at this time, 2025. We are physical beings here,
yeah,
humans, but that's only one part of who we are. And
yeah.
it's,
And it's that opening up of yourself to these potentials, right? Which is key, right? And like I said earlier too, or was it the last time we talked? Like I'm here in the 3D just like anybody else. I mop my floors and I clean the toilet. It's like I'm still doing all of those things, but
yes,
I'm in an expanded version of myself, if you will. I'm embracing all of these other aspects of myself while I'm still here in the 3D.
yeah.
And so it's important for us to open our minds, open our hearts to all of these potentials and become aligned with all of these other energies that are here to help us, make that transition.
And it's also realizing that as soon as you realize that being in this body is a gift for your soul, then you start shifting things.
Yeah,
The more
absolutely.
you do things that bring you joy, the more you align with that higher vibrational reality that's sitting right there all around you. You
Yeah,
know? It's like,
absolutely.
yeah, what once long ago and far away might have seemed unavailable to mere mortal man, you realize we're capable of just so much more, right?
Yeah. Well, I did find some proof, if somebody wants proof. So I was watching, I have a subscription to Gaia TV, and I'm hoping I don't get into trouble with this, with the showing of this clip, but I'm going to put it on on a faster speed than normal, but hopefully it comes through. Are you able to hear it?
Yep. Yep. Oh, a mall. I don't hear anything though.
Oh, you don't hear it?
No, I can't hear them.
Anyway, I'll just talk through it. So this guy is like a former military colonel,
Okay.
and he was involved in like one of these sort of very highly yeah, secretive sort of mission,
Yeah.
if you will, right?
Right.
And so he has a lot of exposure, if you will, to how these beings exist. And, he's talked to them, he's had many encounters with them in the physical,
Hmm.
and he's actually had occasion to go against them in a warlike situation, right? So he knows about these beings and their sort of invasion, if you will,
Right.
within the earth plane, right? But recently, and the reason why I wanted to show that was, maybe I'll just show you the article because that's just in printed form. This happened quite recently in 2024,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and this was in Miami, where there was this. Are you able to see that?
Yep.
So this was in a mall in Miami. And this big red circle you see is the actual alien. I know the footage is not very clear,
Yeah.
but that was intentional because everybody else that had really good footage was confiscated by the authorities at that time. And so this second picture here, I don't know if it'll actually play. Yeah, it is playing, but here you
Oh,
will
I see
see.
the sound is off. If you look down in the corner, Raquel, it the sound has been muted. Can you move your little thingy to
Oh,
there
here.
you go, click,
I don't think that
unless the
does
alien.
anything. No.
Okay.
But anyway, there was this large being that showed up on the steps. You can see it, barely see it here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this was in Miami, and then there was another one. I don't think I have that one. Okay, here's a better shot. So this thing that you can see here, that's
Oh, you
actually
can
the
see.
being.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's like a really big, large being, right? So
But it looks like
apparently,
there's a couple of them there too.
yeah, there were two,
That
I
guy
believe,
there.
that
Yeah.
showed up. Yeah. But anyway, look at the cops. There's like a line of them. All of them just showed up in that particular area, and they cordoned off the area. They took cell phones off of people. They removed any evidence that was, that anyone had filmed of this particular incident.
Freaking crazy, eh?
So they sort of essentially eliminated this event that took place in Miami. And then very soon on
Wow.
the heels of this one, there was another sighting in Las Vegas in somebody's backyard. I don't have a shot of that, but anyway, it just goes to show that I'm just going to play this anyway, even if you can't hear it. But there is a picture here again of that Miami event or that incident, and they show you this picture, and this guy talks about it in this episode, and he confirms that it is true, it happened. And so I tend to believe, see, there's the Las Vegas one, and that's the Miami one.
Okay.
So 10-foot alien outside the mall in Miami,
Hmm.
and then the previous one was in Las Vegas. And so, yeah, so there's all this evidence. So it's like, to me, why does the government need to hide this from the public? It's like, go ahead and just share it with everybody. It's like, why do you have the need to hide these experiences, right? But anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, totally. I
So
didn't.
there's hundreds of these events,
Oh, yeah.
when you watch these shows like on Gaia TV, it goes back to the 1940s, and you might have heard of Roswell. That was
Yeah.
like the first one that crashed.
Yeah.
And so there've been hundreds and hundreds of these events that took place, and they've just been swept under the carpet and, not exposed or disclosed to the public. And, they sort of hide it for some reason, thinking that the people cannot take it, and
That's
it's
what
like,
it is. Yeah.
why?
They just, yeah. Ah, oh, well. Ah,
So anyway, there's this whole group of people, including all ex-military, that have come together now as this disclosure movement, if you will, and they're trying very hard to
to
bring
bring.
forth all of this truth by providing facts of
Mhm.
their own experiences and bringing it to the light. And so, yeah, who knows? Maybe it'll be Trump's decision to one day expose all of this, right? The way he's
Oh,
going, right? He's got all of these things that he's bringing to the light. So maybe it will come to light.
ah, maybe. You
Maybe.
never know.
But, to me, it's already disclosed, right? If it's out there on Gaia TV, they've got like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of memberships, right? So it's like a large number of the population is already aware of what's going on. So who are you hiding it from, right?
Well,
It's like,
there's certain people that would never even open up their consciousness to that belief,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so trying to convince people is like you're just wasting your time and energy, right? What
yeah,
do they say? If you're arguing with somebody who doesn't understand where you're coming from, they're only going to receive what they're able to receive, and it
yeah,
doesn't matter how much you're prodding them or trying to get them to see the truth.
yeah.
They're not.
It's not going to happen. Yeah,
Everybody's got their own reality, right? And it's
yeah.
just
So do you think if tomorrow like a mothership shows up over Vancouver, what would that do? Do you think there'll be like pandemonium everywhere? Do you think people will start, you know, um, fighting among themselves or trying to,
people are already fighting among themselves. Like,
I
how would
know.
I react? I don't have fear of that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
If you if you're in a place of love, truth, compassion, whatever you want to call it, that's just something new that is upon us, right?
Mhm.
And
Well, the way I see it is these beings are not here to harm us. They're here to help
oh,
us. They're just from another dimension, right? And so, what they're trying to get us to understand is that we need to, first of all, raise ourselves up to that level of understanding that they are at, so that we become cosmic citizens, right? Where we can travel just like them
yeah.
interdimensionally, we can have access to those technologies that they have access
Mhm.
to, right? And which is the truth, our government does have access to all of these technologies, but they're suppressing it and they're
Right.
hiding it from us because they have reverse, what's the word? What's the term? Reverse engineered the
Yeah.
technology of all of these crafts that have crashed into our atmosphere. So if you go back to the 1940s or whenever this happened,
Hmm.
like Roswell happened in 1940. So they've had all of these years to reverse engineer all of these technologies. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, I heard that, they have the technology to send ET back home. You remember that movie? ET Go Home, right? And so they have the technology to send ET back home. So we are that advanced in our technology where we can actually do that, where we can create that craft to send ET back home. But it's being suppressed. It's not public knowledge that, this is a possibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that
Totally.
frustrates me sometimes. And it's like, why? Bring it out into the public. Let them deal with it the best way they can. For those that don't want to accept it, then so be it.
Yep, they won't.
Yeah.
Wow.
But for the rest of the folks that want to live in that reality, they should be given that choice to live in that reality, right?
Without people considering them. Wackadoodle.
conspiracy theorists or tinfoil hats. Yeah. So we've come round and round and come back to the same point, right? No, but I guess I'm happy about our conversation today.
Totally. It's always nice chit-chatting
Yeah.
about here, there, and everywhere.
So we did talk about the big woo woo.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's, the beauty of it is there's just so many um, options to discuss out there in the world, right?
Hmm.
You say, well, should we do this? Should we do that? And I always say, well, you start and I'll follow your lead. And it just takes
Yeah.
us into these amazing places, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
No, absolutely. And I love our engagement, and it's not like we get stuck or anything. There's always something interesting to talk about, right? So I love it. I love it.
yay.
Yay. Thank you, Katrice. I'm so glad we had
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
Yeah. And I'll talk to you real soon.
Yeah, yeah. To
Yeah.
my viewers, thank you. Namaste. Thank you for tuning in. I
Bye,
will
everybody.
I will put a link to the article. I'll hopefully be able to do a video out of it. I haven't decided whether I will, but I'll put a link to my blog so you can read the
Perfect.
article we
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about.
Okay, cool.
So thank you for tuning in. Namaste.
Thank you, Raquel. Mwah. Bye bye.